Well, this Sunday, as you might have guessed from the decorations out on Main Street, this is a special Sunday for us. About this time every year, we want to set aside a day to see how God has been working through your hands and feet as you have been about the mission of inviting people to discover and experience God's ways in all kinds of different ways, and seeing that mission permeate from this building on a Sunday all the way to the outreaches of Fort Worth into America and the ends of the earth. And so we want to highlight just a few of those stories. Some of them you might know about or were involved in, and some you might, like, we did that? I had no idea. So we want to let you know what God has been doing in and through you over the past several months. I want to invite Ben Smith on stage. Ben and his wife Heidi have been heading up an event. We would call it a meetup. You might see meetups from time to time in your program. A meetup is a social event where hopefully it's an easy invite for you to invite folks to do something fun. And you guys invented a really fun event called a Nerf War. Nerf War. If you've not been, have no idea what on earth a Nerf War might look like, check out the screens.
Every color team, are we ready?
All of my experience with Nerf was footballs. Something has happened to Nerf over the last however many years that is, with crossbows and hand grenades and all kinds of cool stuff that are all Nerf related. Where did you get the idea to have this kind of a meetup, Ben?
It's kind of started with just how can we reach people? How can we do something a little different? And me and my wife talked about it and prayed about it a lot. And one day it just kind of came where one of my sons walked by with a Nerf gun. And I was like, I was telling my wife, Heidi, I was like, how does a Nerf war sound? It's kind of like, well, how do you do that? I don't know. Just how's that sound for now? So hey, a lot of prayer from that point, and God just kind of put it together and just really just looking into it. And
very, very cool. And this, all the footage you saw was from the Nerf War that happened last Saturday, like on the 28th of April.
Yes.
And, but that was the third one. That was Nerf War 3.
Yes.
In 3D. So what was you were praying for a goal of how many people to show up at a Nerf War. What was the goal, and how many people showed up to the very first one?
The goal was just really connecting people to have fun, mm-hmm. and really just put some joy in people's lives, and parents can really get out there and just have some fun, and just a lot of fun just to kind of get out of your everyday, just normal situations. And you can see from the video that it's a big impact. But the first one we had just maybe 20 or so, and that was just a learning experience to see how it works and how we could improve it. So
you saw that one, and then you made some improvements. What were some of the improvements for the second one?
Second one, we reached out and we really connected with the Gonzalez family. We got to grow in a friendship with them and just reached out and said, okay, how can we go bigger and better? And what better way than free food and barbecue? I mean, who doesn't love barbecue? It's Texas, so.
And if you have not met Richard and Liz Gonzalez, guys, raise your hands. That's them over there. Yeah. They've been to the Nerf War, those folks. They have a smoker set up to die for. And they're very generous and set up the food for that. And they love creating family events around food. So it kind of seemed like a really good fit. How did you meet the Gonzalez family?
2 years ago, we led a team for Deck the Halls. And we got to where we just really wanted to connect well with everyone that was on our team, especially those maybe we'd seen or didn't just knew. Mm-hmm. And we kind of went from there. We met them, and we've been really good friends with them ever since. And it came to the idea of, they do food, let's pull that in as well and
do it.
Grow it.
Yeah. So about, 60, 70 showed up the second time?
Yeah, 67 to 70 we counted.
And then third, how many... were there any improvements or getting people involved? How was that different for this third round?
The third one, we recruited a lot of people to the church that we just figured if they wanted to help, how can we use their skill and their talent they have? And we had a lot of people that were just eager and excited to just jump in and help in any way. And every project or area of the event that we gave them, they took ownership and recruited people to help them. And we had one guy that he was good with his hands, and he built a lot of the structures we had out there for the kids. And it was just a great event that people were willing to take time to, go from the time that we announced it mm-hmm. for the months leading up to. It was a lot of work and prayer and just meetings of getting it together. So,
like a normal meetup is like maybe 10 to 20 people showing up somewhere. How many folks were at that Nerf War a couple weekends ago?
We had 2 people that were part of the main team of that, and when they did the count, we prayed for about 100. And we kind of thought, okay, that's really going out there, but God can do what he wants to do with it, and that's great. But we ended up having, from our 2 counts, about 105 show up, and it was a lot of people that were really new to the church. And that was the big part of it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun because not only is it dodging Nerf bullets amongst trees, but we've got flags up that say that it's a Hope Church event, so folks know that it's us, and it's a great, easy invite for folks who may never walk into this building, who get a taste and a feel for who we are as a church just by chasing kids around a park with Nerf guns and stuff.
I actually had one parent. I didn't say it the last time, but he was really excited. I think he came to the second one. Mm-hmm. And his thing, I was like, hey, thanks for coming out. He's like, yeah, it gives me a reason to come out here and shoot kids. And I was like, whoa. that popped in my head after the first one. I was like, that was something I even told people in the third one. And it was
Safely
dart.
Safely shoot kids.
After he said that, I thought about it. That's right, this is Nerf. So.
Well, thanks, Ben, so much for letting us know about what's been going on there. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, you may have heard us mention from time to time that we are connected to a network of churches called the 17:6 Network. It's a series of churches that largely have been started by folks who came out of Hope, or Hope Church network churches have started other churches. And normally when we talk about our connection to the network, it's usually how our church is connected to another church. Well, I want to invite Jessica Sturdivant and Susan Rana on stage. They have a different kind of story about the network. Like a normal way that we would talk about the network is what happened with our Christmas offering this past November. With just as the start of that, there were all these wildfires that started around one of our sister churches called Chico Community Church. And we were able, through your generosity, be able to send $15,000 to them to help with their recovery with their church members that had been affected by that fire. This isn't church to church. This is kind of people to people, but it's still connected to the network in a way. Why don't y'all step just a touch closer? It's good. Can you tell us, this is Jessica Sturdivant, this is Susan Rondon, who are Brad and Lindsay Rosman? Because I'm guessing most people have no idea that this even happened. So what went on?
Well, Brad and Lindsay Rosman are a couple in their 30s. They are a part of Church in the Valley, Ontario Ranch in Southern California, which is one of the churches in the 17:6 network. And they've been a part of their church for a long time. They have really invested. They're part of the core leadership at their church. They've really sacrificed to make the mission of their church go forward. And they've also helped on different projects with the network as well over the years. And for Matt and I, my husband, they're personal friends of ours that we've gotten to know and really enjoy. And they have 2 older kids, and I'm really bad with remembering kids' ages, so I'm going to say they're older. And I think Claire, she's the younger. I think she's 5. And they've been praying to have a 3rd child for quite a while. A lot of people were praying for them. And they actually got pregnant and then experienced a really hard miscarriage. And their church really loved on them through that as they walked through it. And they kept pressing forward into what God had for them. And then after a little while, they got pregnant again. And this time, as people were praying, Lindsay's pregnancy went really normally for her until about a month till her due date. And she went to a routine sonogram and found out that something should have been caught much earlier in the pregnancy by the doctors, but it wasn't. Their baby had a very serious complication called CDH, which is congenital diaphragmatic hernia, which is a mouthful.
Gold star.
That's why they say CDH. But basically, their baby had developed with a hole in his diaphragm, and his intestines were pushed up through that, pushing his heart over and causing his lungs not to form properly enough to grow enough. And they basically told the Rosmans that the baby's situation is severe and significant, and if he's not born with a good surgical team, with a hospital that knows what they're doing, his chances of survival is very small. And so that was about a month till her due date. Lindsay had had her other 2 children 2 weeks before her due date, so they had about 2 weeks to figure out what to do. And people across the network started praying. And during that time, they looked into where could they have their child. They found the number 1 hospital and team was in Florida, and the doctors and the hospital agreed to take them, and then their insurance said they wouldn't pay for it. And it would be about $3 million out of pocket. So then they started looking at the hospitals near them, which had, I think, about a 30% chance survival rate compared to a 90% chance in Florida. And the insurance said, we will cover any of these hospitals. This is great. But the doctors and hospitals refused to take them as patients. And during that time, Lindsay went into preterm labor. People started praying, and it stopped. But people were just praying, God, please provide a place for this baby to be born where he can live. And the Lord provided an option right at the last. Brad's dad owns a business in Houston, and Houston actually has the number 2 hospital in the nation for dealing with CDH. And the surgical team said they would take them on, and Brad's dad's company said they would provide insurance. So Brad was hired. They decided to board a plane, and they were told if they had the baby during the flight, the baby probably would not make it. And so people, again, were praying really hard. They made it to Houston and got a good night's sleep. And the next day on January 1st, when the insurance started, Lindsay went into labor.
That's really great. So we're going to pause on that story for just a second. Susan, you're back last summer, your job shifted. Can you tell us about that?
In July of 2017, I heard that my company was going to be moving to Houston, and I was not excited about that move. My boss had really advocated for them to let me work from home or from Fort Worth, and through that particular process, God really took the dread of that move out of that decision. When it became clearer that they were not going to let me work from home and that I was going to have to move to Houston, one morning in my quiet time, I read Psalm 66. The end of verse 12 says, and he will lead you out to a broad, moist place. A place of abundance and refreshment. And I just laughed. I thought, God, that is, thank you so much for the opportunity at this stage to just laugh about that decision.
So now you're in Houston. You're in Houston during the week, and then on weekends you're back up here, because here you are. But so you're in Houston, the Rosmans are in Houston, baby is about to be delivered. What happens next?
So Lindsay had baby Luke. They told her he probably wouldn't cry. He cried. They told her he was in a very bad situation when he was born. As people had prayed, literally some of his organs had moved to much better positions. His lungs had developed a lot further. And he was doing really good, but he still had to have a significant surgery to repair things. And they told them, you will be here likely 1 month to 6 months. And so they were able to get a room at the Ronald McDonald House, and their older children came and joined them. And they began staring down this long process of care, of being at the hospital with him, being with their older kids. And I just thought, man, this is so hard that they're displaced from their church family. Because if you've been a part of real community in church, like we have here at Hope, I mean, that's where people love on you, they care about you, they bring you meals, because you don't have time to cook for yourself. And I thought, they don't have that. Their church was working on putting together some finances to help them and encouraging them other ways, but they're far away in Southern California. And then it occurred to me, well, we're kind of like their extended family. We're part of the network. We're like their extended family. We could love on them, but it was still a long ways to Houston. And I thought, can I drive that far with a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old in one day and back? I don't know if that'll go well. And then the Lord brought Susan to mind. She was in Houston. And so I got together a list of all the wants and needs and wishes that they could have of just stuff they needed, like paper plates and things of macaroni and cheese for their kids, just easy stuff for living displaced. And I started texting people at Hope and said, hey, would you be willing to get this? And I didn't know. I think we had like 2 days or maybe 3 days to put it together. I know people are busy. I knew people probably already bought their groceries that week. And amazingly, people just started writing back, yes, I'd love to get that. I'll pick that up. I'll be glad. And a lot of these people didn't even know the Rosmans, but they wanted to help them. And that was so encouraging to watch. So we got together this giant load of paper goods and food, and people brought toys. They said, hey, I bet the older kids are bored. We brought toys for them, and clothes they thought people might need. And we loaded Susan's car before she drove down to Houston. Here at Hope, we loaded it up, and I kept asking her, are you sure you can drive safely? Because it was piled up to the top and the back, and the front, the passenger seat went all the way to the dash full of stuff, and the sides. And she said, I think I can just see enough to drive.
So you drive the stuff down and met Brad. So what was his reaction to seeing all of that?
He was really surprised at the amount of stuff that I had. We met in the parking lot at the Ronald McDonald House, and so we were trying to put all this stuff in his SUV, but there was not any room for passengers. They knew they were going to have to move this stuff around. I made a couple of trips down to the hospital with some subsequent goodies for them, some money and some other things. And by the time I made my last visit, Luke is going to be released from the hospital.
That's great, because it could be like a month to 6 months, and they were there how long?
They were there about a month exactly. During that time, we got to send meals that people made and froze. We got to send clothes. The older kids needed some warmer clothes because Houston was colder than they expected. And money for the older kids to be able to do some stuff. And during that time, the Rosmans used the time they had at the Ronald McDonald House to try to reach out and share Christ with people there who their kids were in a hard situation. And they were able to use the surplus of what we had sent to share with others as they were sharing Christ. So in about a month, they were able to share their faith with a lot of people and share the items people had sent as a way to bless them too.
That's really great. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. It's interesting, like it's just a box of diapers or it's a thing of paper plates that I might donate, but then God can use that and spread his love and his message to people beyond just that package of paper plates. Just an update on baby Luke. They moved back to California, and he had a recent complication that showed up, and he went back into surgery on Tuesday. That first picture was just before surgery. This is after surgery. His intestine had done something else. And the doctors went in and were able to repair that on Tuesday. The surgeons are very happy with how the surgery went. And so Luke is doing well, or as well as can be expected. Hopefully he'll be released from the hospital either today or early this week. You can still be praying for Luke as whatever the surgery was with the intestine, they're waiting for the intestine to wake back up is what the doctors have been telling Brad Lindsay. So you can be praying that that happens and that he gets on a regular feeding schedule and starts eating really well. The doctors are not concerned. He's eating well enough for where he is, but that can increase. And so you can continue to pray for Luke. And thank you guys so much for how you chipped in at a spur of the moment and bought up that opportunity. And we're really able to bless other parts of our extended church family with the Rosmans. But not only do we get to help in the network, we also get to help, those of us who are local and help those here who are a part of Hope Church. I want to invite Kyle Gale and Stephen Beck and Cindy Thompson up on the stage. There was an event that happened over spring break this past March that you might have participated in, or you might not know that this happened. Where we got to do something special for some of our members. This is Kyle Gale. He is on our deacon council, as well as he leads a team called the Mod Squad, which I'll let him explain what mod means here in a minute. This is Stephen Beck. He and his wife Caitlin lead one of our life groups as part of our group life. And then this is Cindy Thompson, and we'll let Cindy explain herself here in just a little bit. Yeah, we can pass out microphones, and that will be great. Kyle, what is our deacon council, and kind of what is the sphere of responsibility there?
Sure. Deacons, a few years ago, we changed structure here at Hope. So we now have deacons, and we have a board of directors and some other things that are going on. But so deacons are kind of new for us, and so we're trying to figure that out. Our deacon council is really a way for people like yourself to connect with the deacons, and really for us to be able to communicate to staff the needs of the congregation. And so it's a great way for us to encourage you and at the same time inform staff of what's going on in the body. So with that in mind, one of the things that, we're always looking for, what can we do to help people? What can we do to really stay connected to folks? And one of the thoughts that came out was, I have a mother who is now a widow, and I have a mother-in-law who is a widow, and we have several widows here in the congregation. We could connect with them and really serve them to help move things along.
So being on the deacon council and the leader of the Mod Squad, which means what? What does the Mod Squad do?
Being a large building here, we have a lot of stuff. And being a guy that likes to work with my hands, I like to fix things, organize things, and tear things up. So Mod Squad is really manage, organize, and disassemble. But we prefer to call it destroy.
Destroy.
Yeah.
Demolish.
So we basically work in the room in the back that keeps track of all of the stuff. Like today, you're going to go out in a few minutes, you're going to see tables out, you're going to see decorations. We do the thing that somebody referred to earlier, deck the halls, where we dress up the building for Christmas. So we have a bunch of Christmas stuff. So when that goes out and comes back, it's usually in chaos, in bins and on the floor and hanging from the ceiling. And so some of us like to get in there and try to clean it up and organize it and make it so it can be used next time. So that's what we do.
Great, but you like to use your hands and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So between the Mod Squad and some of our life groups, as well as a group of young adults, teams went out to help several of our families who are widows and to help with some home maintenance. Stefan, your life group, or part of your life group, went out to help. Where did you go, and kind of what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Several people from our life group were able to come out, and we were able to join on different teams that were around the Metroplex. I think Greg Cruz was actually in charge of the group that I was a part of. And we actually got to go out and help Tess McDonald load up a bunch of bags of mulch in a truck and drive them to her house and spread them out, and just a lot of manual labor for her. And then Jane Harrison had a shed that the floor was falling in, and there was just a lot of stuff in there. She needed some help getting it organized and getting it cleaned out, and so we were able to go out there and help them with that.
So from your perspective and working there, what were some of your takeaways of getting to help out with that project?
Well, for me personally, and a couple people that I talked to from our group afterwards, it was just really encouraging to see that as Christians, we're part of this bigger family that we have here, and that we're not really alone. We don't really have to face these challenges on our own and by ourselves. And something that would be overwhelming for one person, a group of people can come together and really cheerfully knock it out very quickly, get a lot done, and really bless some people. And I think Jane Harrison was about to have knee surgery right before this, and so it was just something that she wasn't able to do, but it was just a real joy and a lot of fun to be able to help her out with that. Yeah, I think that's the reconstructed floor there. But anyway, it was just really encouraging. It was a lot of fun, and they were really sweet, and so we were just able to do that, and that was really encouraging.
Great. Well, Cindy, you're one of the ladies who was helped out by the project.
He just says, ladies, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why he said Yes, I get to be the representative widow. Can tell. And I'm going to start with, we're going to start with in the beginning. When Kyle was actually in charge of the team that helped me, and when he came to me and asked, I had to be humble and say, yeah, I needed help. But my first thought was, I have an adult son. I can help him with that list that keeps getting longer and longer and longer. And I thought about it, and I thought, okay, well, this really would serve us. It would serve him and me. Shrubs and tons of stuff. And, he's full-time in school and ministry and working. And so, I was just like, he works in the student ministry. I just thought, okay, I'll do it. But it wasn't a very convenient week. You would think it was spring break, but that week was the week that my sister and I were working on an estate sale. We had hired a company to do an estate sale for my parents' home. So it was a difficult week for various reasons, and I felt very empty and very sad that Saturday. That was the last day of the estate sale, and I didn't want to be there. So I thought, cha-ching, okay. Sure, Kyle, I'll be home, and y'all can come work at my house, because I didn't want to be at that estate sale. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. And this home is a home that I grew up in, and earlier I realized that by saying this, I kind of give away my age, but more than 50 years my parents had lived there. But that's all I'm going to say, just a little more than. But so on that Saturday, there were lots of men in my backyard, and I thought, okay, this is perfect. I had two sweet little girls that came in the house with me, and we sat in my craft room, and we drank chocolate milk, and we made thank you cards for all the men. And I'm like, oh, thank you, God. I'm crafting, and I'm focusing on something other than Mom and Dad's house and my family home. And then I walked past, or I think I walked outside, and I saw there is my adult son with young men that he's grown up with for the past 24 years working. He's also working with men that were my husband's friends. And then I turn, and he's working with young men. And I realized that God was reminding me of what you've heard several times today. He is really reminding me of my family that I have. And it was really what I needed to see as I humbled myself, and what I really needed to see that day. And it reminds me that when these guys are just going to trim shrubs, I don't think they always know what the backstory is and really what they're doing. Now, the trees look awesome, and there's no way we could have ever got that done that quickly, ever. But it really was, God just had a much higher plan for that day than just trimming my shrubs.
Well, thanks, guys, for helping with that project. Thank you, Cindy, for being willing to let people come to your house. And thank you for all of you guys who were able to also be a part of that on that Saturday. And not only have you guys been helping out with these personal touches, but there has been moments where the institution of Hope Church has helped other church institutions inside the network. I want to let you know about one of those as well. I want to invite Randall Robinson and Bryant Phillips to the stage. Both Randall and Bryant are graduates of our 5-year ministry training program called the Antioch Project. This is for folks who feel like God has called them into vocational ministry, that is a career that He has called them to, whether that's starting a church or helping out with a college ministry or some other vocational ministry position. You guys can come on right up here. It's great. And in fact, the next graduation for Antioch Project is coming up in the evening on May 19th. We'd love for all of you guys to be out there for that. We've got 4 folks who are graduating out, and we're praying that God will send them to a great places to do ministry. We've got 4 others who are leveling up inside the program. So it'd be a fun way to learn about what the Antioch Project is, what happens inside of that program, as well as to support those who are making some kind of transition inside of the program. So you guys went in February. We had a brand new network church start in February called Ridgeview Church in Fontana, California. The senior pastor or founding pastor there is Alex Barrett, and he comes out of another network church. That's them there on the screens. They come out of a church called Church in the Valley, which you've already heard about. That's where the Rosmans came out of. And so a team of Antioch graduates and I think one almost graduate went out there to kind of see, how does a church launch? How does this is a training opportunity for them to say, this is what I want to do with my calling, and I don't know, how does a church launch look? And so they got to help with the launch of Ridgeview on Sunday, and then Monday they drove down to San Diego to help out with another recent church start with David Wooster. David Wooster grew up here. He was part of the student program here. He's now in his 30s. He's married with kids and is now the pastor of Compass Church in San Diego, and the guys got to chat with them as well. What did you guys do in Fontana with Ridgeview Church and making that thing go? What was that experience like, Randall?
Well, for me, it was kind of going back to my roots. I was a part of Church in the Valley for about 12 years before I came out here to Hope, and went to college with Alex and his wife and a number of the people that are on their launch team. And for me, it was going back to that kind of my roots. And what CIV and Ridgeview have in common is that they are mobile churches. So they have a U-Haul box truck that they load their church into every Sunday morning. Well, they keep it stored in, and then they unload it every Sunday morning and put everything out. So what we take advantage of when we walk into this building is that all the little fine things are already done. We have a classroom for the kids to play in. We have the sound system already set up, and mobile churches don't do that. They gotta start from scratch and put all it together. And so there's an extreme amount of energy that goes into putting that in. And for me, that was I was a little refreshing. I'd been a part of that for a long time, and so going back to it was a lot of fun. And seeing the level of buy-in. They'd had a couple people who were not part of their launch team, but that they had met during preview services, who were completely bought in and were serving and giving the energy the same level as the launch team was. And so being a part of that was a lot of fun, as well as seeing the people that were part of that launch team that they moved out. They literally packed up their houses and moved locations to Fontana. And so seeing that level of buy-in was really encouraging.
Cool. Brian, what was some of your takeaways from, what did you guys do on that Sunday? And then I think you've got a story about a food truck that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it was a really quick trip for us. We were gone, I think about 72 hours-ish. And we flew out early Saturday morning and got there and started helping them prep for their grand opening, which was the next morning. And so we were up a little later that night, and then we were up Sunday morning. I think we were out the door no later than 6 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning. As Randall said, they're a mobile church, so they were renting out a room at a school. And imagine walking in this building and nothing being set up for Sunday morning, and you got to make it all happen. And they do that every week. And so we got there really early, and we were putting out signs that says Ridgeview Church this way on roads, really as the sun was coming up just about, because no one knows this church exists except the people that they've met and that they've invited and that they've given door hangers to. But we put them in strategic places around the church area. There was kind of a larger intersections that people would be going by. So we got to the church, or the school, excuse me, and we started setting up, and we did all the AV and all the sound and all the chairs and the stage, and I got all the parking stuff ready and did the whole thing. And they had their preview or their launch service, and as Brian alluded, he mentioned a food truck. There was the school that they meet at. There's a real pretty park right next to it, and the plan was in the pavilion at the park to have a after church celebration. They were bringing in a food truck that was making burgers and that kind of stuff. and everybody was going to go over to the park and have a great old time. But it was pouring down rain that day. In Southern California, it never rains, but it was pouring down rain there. And so what happened was that the food truck, without anybody knowing they were going to do this, they pulled right up to the front door. And so you walk out the front door, and the food truck is right in front of you. So what that meant was nobody could leave without getting a burger first. So imagine this room. This was the multi-purpose room that we were meeting in, and everybody just circled up their chairs, and we had burgers and had chicken sandwiches and chips and cookies and all that stuff for an hour or two, and just got to meet a lot of the guests and people that they had been inviting and investing in, and it was just a ton of fun all the way around.
That's great. Well, Randall, you and I were talking earlier, and we were talking about how Hope Church has this building, we've got everything set up, and Ridgeview kind of feels like it's scrappy because they got nothing and they got to make it happen every week. And what was your takeaway from coming back here where everything is set up every week? So what does that allow for us here?
Well, my initial thought was that when you're doing a mobile church like that, you're on the front lines. Like that's the real hard thing. You're doing the front line thing. And after I came back, it dawned on me that the front line is just different. So my front line shifted. When I was at Church in the Valley, I was helping set up a sight and sound. I was doing those things. And here, I help teach in the Sunshine Factory, and so my front line has shifted. And so the efforts that I put into and the energy I put into it needs to be the same. And so the encouragement to me was that front line is just wherever you serve currently and wherever you're at. And so the energy, you can put all your energy in that, and you can have that be your goal, to really invest hard and to buy in completely in that moment, even though it looks different, it's the same.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, very much. It's fun to hear how, it doesn't sound like anybody was doing anything extraordinary, and yet God is able to multiply those efforts and do really great things in the midst of that. You also may or may not know that both Compass Church in San Diego and Ridgeview Church in Fontana were part of our Christmas offering efforts back from November to January. So we were able to give them some other funds to help them keep the ministry going and keep the lights on and be able to keep reaching folks out there in California. This event that they were talking about happened in February. There's been several Sundays since, and so God has been doing stuff over at Ridgeview for the last several weeks, and we've got a video in from Alex Barrett. Pastor Harold's going to come up and talk to us as well, but check out what has been going on at Ridgeview Church.
Hey Hope Church, this is Alex Barrett, the pastor of Ridgeview Church, and I just wanted to thank you guys for all of your prayer support and your financial support that you guys have given us really this past year, and I wanted to give you an update. As many of you know, we actually had a Hope team that came and helped us with our grand opening back on February 10th, and it was such a blessing and encouragement to have that team with us. They jumped right in, they met people, connected with guests, and helped us pull off our event, and it was a great success. Since then, we've had a lot of firsts as a church. We had our first Easter service just a few weeks ago and saw 12 new guests come to our church that had never been before. We also had a baptism back in April where 4 people got baptized, and over the last couple months, we've had a woman commit her life to Christ, and so we've been so encouraged to see God working and drawing people to himself. Right now, we're having lots of events to connect with people, have fun, and today we're actually serving the city of Fontana with a service project that they have. And so we're just looking for opportunities to continue to meet people, to serve, and to really share the hope and love of Jesus Christ. And we couldn't really do that without all of the prayer and support of the 17:6 Network, and specifically Hope Church. And so thank you guys for all of the love and the prayer and the support. We appreciate it so much.
You've heard about things that really have been going on all year. We get together on Sundays, and we try to worship the Lord and then listen to things from the Scriptures. But the ministry really happens through you guys. It's all the stuff that you're doing to touch lives and be able to help the people, some of it here in the building, a lot of it beyond the building. And it's really happening through you. That's why the thank you day. This is not just thank you to the people that you saw on stage, but it's thank you to you for your investment, for the ways that you're touching lives for Christ Jesus. We're a different kind of bunch. You know, whenever you think about Jesus being on the planet and the group of guys he pulled together as his core disciples, you tend to think something along the line of, wow, what a bunch of people. Exceptional. Actually, they were a lot like us. And you see it as you read the New Testament. At one point, they'd all been having an argument, these 12 guys had. Luke talks about this. He says that the argument's been going on. What had happened is they were arguing over who was going to be the most important. Who's the most important among us and who's going to be the most important among us. And two of the fellows, they were brothers, got their mom to come to Jesus and say, would you answer a request for me? And he very wisely said, well, what is it you want? That's always a good question when people say, would you do something for me? It's always good to ask, what is it you want? And she said, I'd like one of my sons to be at your right hand, the most important, and the other one to be at your left, the next most important. Well, the other guys got angry. They were really upset with these fellows. I think mainly because they'd never thought of having their moms come and ask Jesus for that. They've been having a big argument, and Jesus says to them, in the book of Luke, the kings of the Gentiles, those are the people of other religions outside the faith, lord it over them. And those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. There are people who are going to do great things for people. Actually, they're making people do great things for them. But you're not to be like that. Instead, among you, the greatest among you should be like the youngest. This was a society, by the way, where age had tremendous respect and youth had almost none. So the most respectable among you should just be like the young guys in your own mind. And the greatest among you should be like the youngest, the one who rules like one who serves. You know, kings of the earth don't see themselves like one of the fellows. But that's how we approach ourselves. Who's greater? The one who's sitting at the table eating, or the waiter who's standing there? The one who is at the table to serve. Isn't it the one who's at the table, the guy sitting down? Yeah, he's got the waiter there. Who's the most important? The guy eating. Who's not so important? The guy serving. Obvious. I mean, everybody knows this. But Jesus says, who's the most important? Isn't it the one at the table? But I am among you as a table waiter. Literally, that's what the word means. I serve. I'm a table waiter. Wow. Everybody's trying to be so important. And yet, the Lord of heaven and earth sees himself as a table attendant. Well, that's beneath so many. It's different in the kingdom. Jesus, whenever you meet him, he changes things. He changes everything. He changes church life. He says in the Gospel of Mark, for even the Son of Man, that's his term for himself, they now understand that he is the Messiah. He's the one God has promised. He's the fellow who will be Lord over everything. And he says, even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And again, that same word's used, to be a table waiter, be an attendant, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Wow. If this is the Lord of heaven and earth, and he's going to be a table waiter, what should all his followers be? The disciples had a hard time with us. This just changes church life. It's not to be like the rest of the world among us. It's to be different. It changes a lot of things. Actually, there are some broad patterns in mankind that are just sort of how we are, and it really impacts them. One of them is, some of us really like to take it easy. We love to watch other people do things. We like to take it easy. Others of us, we like to direct things. We know what ought to be done, and we're more than willing to tell people to do it. Others of us, we just like fun. Not so much taking it easy, but we just want to have some fun. Others of us, we want to be important. We want to be thought important. We want to be treated as if we're important. We like to be stars. But it's different among us in the kingdom. It's different in church. This shifts a lot of things. It shifts your motives, like from watching other people do stuff to actually getting involved in doing stuff now. It's different among us. From running the show, if I were in charge, it'd get done. From running the show to helping make the show happen. From having fun to actually being a helper. From getting attention, being a star, to giving honor to others. It just changes things. The disciples were struggling to get hold of this because they're just like us. They're just people. But people among whom the King of Heaven had come. People who were learning that the most important thing in the world is not to be important. It's to be of help. This really changes church life. It changes it from being a kind of chessboard for people to move pieces to get what they want, to being a group of people who, first of all, bear their own responsibilities. We do help each other, but we all have to carry our responsibilities. We bear our own responsibilities, but a community of people who actually care about each other, and then help. We help. When your leader is the table attendant, what higher position can you have? So we're here to help. You heard a lot of stories of helping today. The Lord Jesus and what he's done in giving his life for us and developing a personal relationship with us brings to us the value system of heaven, not the value system of earth. And the God of heaven is a great God. He deserves to be worshiped. He's the most important person there is. And yet his heart, when he shows up on the planet, is to help. God gives all kinds of different spiritual gifting. There are leadership gifts. There are other gifts more geared toward organizing, like Kyle was talking about, organizing chaos and taking things apart. There are all kinds of gifts, but the goal is not to be admired for the gift. The real goal is to be a very, very, very good table waiter. I've often wondered, what if, whenever we get to the final banquet in heaven, and we're at the bridegroom's banquet, the wedding banquet of the Lord, and people have all kinds of imaginations about that great occasion. And up here is the head table with Jesus and the apostles. He actually says to them they're going to get sit at his table. And we see ourselves somewhere in the crowd. Wouldn't it be a surprise to look up and see Jesus carrying the tray to your table? That doesn't fit very well with our worldly imaginations. But it sure fits with the heart of God. Now, this changes church life, and it actually makes it, over time, enjoyable.